So the pyramid is a metaphor for the way modern culture works, for the way all the huge agrarian cultures have always been organized, from like ancient China, ancient Egypt, all the ancients we know. And we're all familiar with it. A small group of privileged people occupy the top of a pyramid, and they control, either by force or by some sort of bribery or payment, the vast majority of other people who have lower and lower levels of privilege. And when you get to the bottom of the pyramid, it's people who are very poor. And that has always been the social structure that has existed in these large societies. Sometimes the poor get upset about it and they create a revolution. But a revolution literally means one turn of the wheel. So they turn the wheel. I spent time doing research in China right after the Cultural Revolution, and I saw how the communists had come in to try to eradicate the inequalities of the previous system, and they had just replicated it. So in China, they said at the time, under capitalism, man exploits man. Under communism, it's the other way around. So everybody has always been exploited. I mean, except for the people at the top of the pyramid. These structures seem to just repeat themselves, these pyramid-shaped structures. But they also have a characteristic half-life. They collapse at a certain point because the poor get frustrated, because the system can't be plundered anymore. Most tribal societies are very horizontal. There's no really strong difference in rank. And in fact, it is very strongly ensured. Like if one of the hunters makes a big kill, they have something called mocking the meat, where you have to make fun of this guy who's just done something wonderful so that he can show he can laugh at himself, because they say if you don't do that, he will start to take control of other people. It's fascinating. All these tribal cultures see this. In pyramid-shaped cultures, it just happens. The people at the top don't laugh at themselves. They start killing others. And you see what we have in the world today. And as a sociologist, I used to think, my doctorate is in sociology, I would think, what is the alternative? Like, I really feel like I was born to see this thing shift, not into a revolution that just replaces domination with domination by other people, but something fundamental, something perhaps even unprecedented. And after decades of pondering this, I sort of had the image of a society like that as a still pool, maybe even a lake, absolutely flat and equal, in which everybody's presence creates wave effects, and those wave effects interact with each other. So if two waves interact, constructive interference is called, they get very big. If an up and down wave connect, they create zero. If two down waves create, that's called destructive interference, and it creates a trough. Anyway, you get these things rippling and interacting with each other. And I thought the degree of presence is kind of what creates a bigger ripple. So, for example, once I met Eckhart Tolle, and I was speaking at the same venue where he was one day, and we both came out of these lecture rooms parallel to each other at the same time. And I thought, well, I usually don't go fangirl on people, but he's changed my life so much, I've really got to go say thank you. So I turned and I started walking toward him, and there were people all around asking questions. When I was about 100 meters away, I felt his consciousness feel my consciousness. It was absolutely unmistakable. It was like shaking hands. It was so evident. And I said, thank you. And he said, you're welcome. Like, not in words, but energetically, this thing happened. And I thought, well, that's job done. So I turned around and walked away. And his presence was enormous. And that's what made me think of this thing of, okay, how present you are is what makes the ripples in the sort of the metaphysical aspects of this pool world. And I used to think, how do you turn a pyramid into a pool? What? They're so different. They could not be more different. And I saw something online the other day talking about the present situation in the world that said, when I'm between a rock and a hard place, let me be water. Let me be water. And I thought, okay, this is a consciousness like water. And I thought, it's very much like the consciousness that's reported by mystics in every culture, certainly in Asia, but also in Europe, going way back to the mystics. There's an awakening that happens to people anywhere they are in the world. It happens to people in tribal cultures, happens to people in modern life. It's just not very common. But if it did become common, if, for example, 10% of people had a Buddhist or Christian mystic style awakening, where they completely lost all ego, how would that influence the other structures of society? And I've modeled this on different softwares, and I've like sicked AI on it and everything. And what it says is if you had people, there would be clusters of people who enjoy that lack of stress, that compassion, that connectedness, and it would start to sort of gather in pools like that circle of people around Eckhart Tolle. And slowly, you'd see an effect on the whole society. And when I asked ChatGPT about it, it actually said, this is not a revolution, it's a dissolution, which is the very metaphor, the very word I'd been using. And I, long ago, it's online, I made a pyramid out of sugar cubes, poured some water into it, and watched the pyramid dissolve from the lowest places up to the highest. And it was so interesting when almost the whole pyramid dissolved very evenly. The top cube wasn't even wet when the whole entire pyramid had been subsumed by the water. And then it collapsed as well. But it was all quiet. It was inclusive. It didn't throw anything away. Nothing about that sugar was destroyed except for the rigidity of its form. So it basically, the pool includes the pyramid to death. Lovingly. It's all done with compassion, and because the human soul, I believe, yearns for that sort of awakening.
If you're interested in seeing the full session and 29 others like it, you might want to check out the Holistic Coaching Summit. This is a revolutionary free online event featuring interviews with 30 of the world's leading pioneers in coaching, who will share with you their latest cutting-edge frameworks for achieving mastery as a coach and building a thriving practice. Speakers include Marshall Goldsmith, Martha Beck, Stephen Porges, Gay Hendricks, Michael Bongastinier, and 25 more. The event will take place from the 1st to the 5th of December 2025, and you can pre-register for your free pass via the link in the comments.